All right. So I'm going to introduce our speaker for today. The first speaker will be Adam Kadela. He will be talking about the Dexafit story. So Adam creates Dexafit's long-term growth vision, product roadmap, and strategy. As part of the process, he partners with medical and fitness industry leaders to launch innovative technology platforms that provides clients with data, inspiration, and guidance to improve their health, achieve their fitness goals, and transform their lives. Adam developed his expertise in technology as head of FX trading at Eagle 7, a global financial trading and technology firm based in Chicago. Among other activities, he designed proprietary software and trading strategies for arbitrage, market making, and discovering hidden liquidity in the market. A lifelong athlete, Adam was starting middle linebacker and captain of the Northwestern University football team, where he first learned how to optimize performance using cutting-edge technology and resources. So if you guys are excited to listen to what Adam has to say, type Adam. So meanwhile, let me just unmute Adam. Adam, are you unmuted? Awesome. All right.
I am.
Awesome. All right. Is this your slides?
The slides are there. Thank you,
Awesome.
James.
All right.
I appreciate the introduction, and hello to everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening for you. I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear a dog bark or a cat. It's early morning here, and I have a 1-year-old sleeping, so I'm keeping him corralled. Anyways, wanted to introduce myself. As James alluded to, my background comes from trading, but also sports, and Dexafit was kind of merged my two interests before opening it. So, as a former athlete, when I was playing, they would always, every offseason, they would make sure that they had the best data, or at least at the time, the best data about, our body composition, our fitness level, and do everything they could to improve our performance on the field. So it was something that I was always doing, was just testing myself, seeing what I could, seeing how I was improving and how I could be better. And then when I was done playing, I realized some of these tools were not really easy to find. And that's where kind of the opportunity for Dexafit came in, with a former teammate of mine who'd played in the NFL. He also had access to a lot of high-end testing, biometric testing to, in the off season, a lot of professional teams were using this, researchers, and we felt there was an opportunity to make this more accessible and available to just everyday people, amateur athletes, anybody who's just looking to feel better and look better. Around the same time, when we were opening Dexafit, I was also misdiagnosed with a thyroid condition that turned out to be an autoimmune issue that I did not know about. And there were a lot of things I should have been doing if it had been diagnosed correctly. And the way that I was able to eventually get the correct diagnosis was I had to go out on my own. I had to find other doctors that were out there, get my own lab work. It was a very expensive process. It was not easy to do. There was no really roadmap to do that, to find somebody that could help me figure out what was wrong with me. And so that's where, again, I felt another opportunity with Dexafit was to democratize access for people that were interested in doing this on their own and not being trapped in a paradigm to go and be at the mercy of, the insurance industry or their doctor. And so that's where I want to start, James. If you could go to the next slide with a quote. This is probably my favorite testimonial in all the years that I've been doing Dexafit. I learned more in 20 minutes with Dexafit than I did in 20 years visiting my doctor. Metlife even reduced my insurance premium after reviewing my results. So what do you think about that quote right there? I learned more in 20 minutes than in 20 years. And I know from just talking with Dexafit users over the years and my own personal experience that this is something that a lot of people could relate to. Could you go to the next slide, please? So we're going to talk about Rod, who gave us this testimonial. And I'll tell you a little bit about Rod. He was, I think he was probably in his 40s at the time. He was in good shape. He was definitely in really good shape. I believe his DEXA scan was maybe around 10%. He had a pretty good VO2 max test as well. But if his BMI, he was obese, which, as he was explaining to us, when he did his life insurance, that's one of the metrics they looked at. And for years before he found Dexafit, he was using weight as his guide, which can be very misleading, along with a few other, what we call noisy health and fitness measurements, something like steps from a wearable device, any of that data that's not necessarily been medically validated and useful to understand if you're actually making good progress. So for example, Rod would tell us how, he sees his weight on the scale not changing, which can be frustrating if your goal is weight loss. Are you losing fat or are you losing muscle? You don't know. And oftentimes we see people that they feel like they're plateauing, the weight's not changing, and then they get a DEXA scan and they eventually learn, hey, this is great. We actually lost fat, gained lean mass. Those people, though, unfortunately, are still considered obese by the BMI. And so that's where we really, for Rod's case, it's not unique. This is a very common problem that people have, especially in an industry that's utilizing BMI and weight as some of the major metrics that you're using to track health, as I said, which can be misleading. For example, something like the BMI, which is over 200 years old, and it was never actually meant to be a general measure of bodybuilder fat, just a population level indicator to see how health was. Go to the next slide, James. Oh, I think we went, there you go. Now, Rod with Dexafit. So when Rod came in, and he did his DEXA scan, what we call it a cardiorespiratory fitness test, which I'm guessing most people on here are somewhat familiar with their technology. So I'm not going to go in too much detail about it because James has a great presentation after me that will go explain kind of all the testing and show you the results you get. But our goal when we opened Dexafit was we want to look, what is one of the most important things you could track about yourself? What is something that almost everybody cares about? Well, it's how far from death are you? So let's figure out a way we can actually track our preventative health risk, even our longevity with medical grade technology. And that's the difference with Dexafit testing that Rod, using it now, is able to learn about himself. Body composition distribution specifically, which is more important than just body fat percent alone or total weight. Your VO2 max cardiorespiratory fitness, which is considered the top indicator of all-cause mortality. These two tests alone, Brandon might later on will probably agree with me, and these are probably two of the most important tests you could do that tell you 80–90% of your preventative health risks and whether or not you are improving your health and fitness level or not, beyond anything else that's out there. Let's go to the next slide. Why did Metlife care about this? So, as I explained earlier, many insurance companies, even doctors, are using these tools like BMI, which are very old and not very reliable. Metlife Care, because if you look at the medical literature, you're going to see that DEXA, body composition, as well as a VO2 max test, both are utilized on FDA-approved systems here. They're considered the gold standard for body composition health and cardiorespiratory fitness. But more importantly, they tell you a lot about your chronic disease risk, among many other diseases, including some cancers. It's decades of research behind it, but more importantly, it's just the level of detail that you get from a DEXA scan, which again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about, but James will talk about later. I will talk about an example that really resonated with me early on after starting Dexafit, were two clients that came in on the same day. These two clients on the same day, both males, both came in at around 10%, about 10% body fat. So on the surface, you'd say, hey, that's really good. Wow, you're 9–10% body fat. If you go to the gym and if somebody asks you, hey, what's your body fat? Oh, wow, that's really good. You must know what you're doing. Well, one of those guys, I will say, you would want to listen to what they were doing at the gym. This guy was very sharp. He dialed in his diet. He had a great fitness routine. If you looked at his body composition distribution, and this is the important part, his body fat percent, 10%. His body composition distribution, though, showed he had 0 pounds of visceral fat, a very healthy T-score, which is your skeletal health, almost perfect lean mass asymmetry, just carried a good amount of lean mass for his frame. So you can tell this, all in all, this guy was very healthy. The other guy, on the other hand, same total body fat percent, at about 3.5, 4 pounds of visceral fat, which, as a reminder, is the fat that's stored around your organs. That is the one that is most correlated to your chronic disease risk, among many others. He also had a pretty lows on the lower side for his T-score for skeletal health. So you could see this guy, again, what's considered a healthy total body fat percent, in reality was likely pre-diabetic, if not diabetic. At this time, we did not have some of our disease detection tools, which Brandon's going to be talking about later on in the presentation, where we would, today, we'd actually be able to tell him if, whether or not he was diabetic or pre-diabetic based upon his DEXA scan. But at the time, again, this was something that was very revealing to me after scanning so many different people, just how powerful a tool DEXA is. Let's go to the next slide. So I know for those that have had Dexafit testing, especially in Asia, you are also familiar with some of our other testing. So why did we include these other tests, which include a resting metabolic rate test, your 3D body scan, and lab testing? We'll go ahead and talk about your resting metabolic rate first. So when we originally opened Dexafit, our three primary tests were a DEXA scan, a VO2 max test, and an RMR test. Why was that? Well, we called it the three-legged stool of your health: your body composition health, cardiorespiratory fitness, metabolic health. These are three things that we're pretty confident that 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, all of us are still going to care about our body composition, cardiorespiratory health, and our metabolic health. It's just some of the technologies we use to test those may change. So that's why we added the RMR. It complements specifically your body composition as well as your VO2 max test, in the sense it tells you exactly what is your resting metabolic rate. How many calories do you burn at rest? More importantly, beyond that, it also shows you how efficiently you're burning, fat versus carbohydrates, or a mixture of both. We have many clients that are interested in that metric, because maybe they're trying to go into ketosis and following the ketogenic diet. So it's just another useful way to see how your metabolism is changing on that diet. Another important thing to do with your RMR test is, if you're losing weight, it's very important to know, all right, alongside a DEXA scan, am I undershooting with my calories every day? And that's forcing my body to lose precious lean mass. So it's, again, these tools are very complementary in how we're using that. The next test we utilize is a 3D body scan. If DEXA shows us everything that's going on the inside, where we're storing lean mass, fat mass, our bone mass, the 3D body scan shows you what's going on the outside. It maps the surface of your body in 3 dimensions, reveals, it's a fun way to really track and see how your body's changing, not only on the inside, but also on the outside. And then finally, which in Dexafit Asia currently is not offering lab testing out of their facility, but over here in the United States, we do offer a host of labs, different custom panels that we've created, along with individual markers that you're able to order without having to go your traditional route through your doctor. We will be soon launching within the app the ability to integrate any past lab data that you have. This way you can analyze it alongside your Dexafit data, your DEXA scan, your VO2 max, your RMR, and all of that. And we'll be providing more insights about your specific results. So let's go to the next slide. So Dexafit then and now. So I'm just going to jump in and tell you just a little bit about our history and where we're going, and then we'll obviously cover more of that later on in the presentation. So as a reminder, DEXA and cardiopulmonary exercise systems have been around for decades. First, I think CPET came around in the 70s, DEXA in the 80s, and honestly, through the 80s, the 90s, and the probably early 2000s, DEXA was primarily used as a bone densitometer for skeletal health. Identify whether or not you have osteoporosis or osteopenia. It was only utilized in mostly research settings for body composition, where it was used for different studies to just track how people's body composition health was changing. Around the 2000s, when it became this, the gold standard for body composition assessments, it was started to gain popularity among a lot of professional organizations. A lot of NFL National Football League teams over here, sports teams. Usually elite athletes are kind of the early adopters of a lot of new technologies, and eventually they kind of trickle down to everybody else, since it's their job to figure out what to do to improve their health and fitness level. So that's kind of how the Dexafit story began. Was, as I said earlier, a former teammate of mine at Northwestern. We reached out, alma mater, built out a sports science program at Northwestern, which is when sports science was starting to become pretty popular, and that's using data to improve an athlete's performance. It's also around the time that biohacking started to get popular, personalized health. If anybody's familiar with Tim Ferriss and his 4-Hour Body book, he's actually a client at our San Francisco office, where he recommends getting a DEXA scan. That's where our story really began. Was we reached out to a lot of top programs to learn what they were doing, and DEXA and specifically VO2 max testing were two of the tests that kept popping up as what they were doing with their athletes in the off season and throughout the season to improve their performance. Well, unfortunately, it was really hard to find this testing here in the United States. You could get it, it's just it was not easy to do, and it was usually very expensive. And so that's where we saw an opportunity, was to, at the time we wanted to create our own high-end sports lab for everyday people to come in and get access to this testing. And it was a part-time passion project for us both. It was not full-time, but based on the adoption and the traction and our growth, especially more and more people reaching out to us wanting to open up facilities just like ours and take advantage of the work we had done, we were blown away and just really happy to help as much as we can. And that's what led to our growth. Throughout all of this, though, we recognized an opportunity, and that's how I met Brandon, who'll be speaking later on. He and I shared the same vision. We had the same idea of what we could do with the data that we were collecting at Dexafit. And more importantly, we could improve the experience for our customers by going from paper to digital. Because at the time, we were at the mercy of the manufacturer report for these systems, which was not very user-friendly, didn't go into too much detail, didn't provide a lot of insights about specific metrics like your preventative health risks. It just gave you a total body fat percent number, or it just gave you the visceral fat number, which to most people who have never heard about visceral fat, they'll forget about it as soon as they leave, and then they'll either be calling you, asking, or looking it up on their own, which again is not a very user-friendly experience. So that was in 2019, we launched our first version of our Dexafit AI app. And so the simple objective with that was, all right, let's integrate all of this testing data that we're collecting, so individuals don't need to leave with just paper reports that they put in a folder. Now, everything that we explained to them at the office and that they saw is now on their phone 24/7. And it provides detailed insights, easy to understand, nice visualizations, and it's a great way to track your progress. From there, we also rolled out what we call our longevity score. Why did we roll out the longevity score? That was, again, steering people away from gravitating towards just total body fat percent alone, which, as I explained earlier, can be very misleading, not the most helpful metric. And let's give them something that, honestly, I think almost everybody cares about, is what's our longevity? How healthy are we? How far from death are we? And so that's let's fast forward now to 2022, where I can't believe it's 2022 saying that, but we've collected billions of data points from the various DEXA CPET systems that we have out there in the world, along with lab tests, and we're improving our AI now to detect even more chronic diseases. Coronary artery disease, diabetes, and hopefully more in the future. So let's go to the next slide, James. So I'll just quickly go through kind of the Dexafit journey. James will go into more detail here shortly. So what we like to say is, when you come into Dexafit, you're getting effect data. And what does effect data mean? So you have causal data. Cause data is, what are you doing to cause an effect on your body composition, cardiorespiratory fitness, and metabolism? Those are the three things that you're looking to change, what's causing that change? Those would be things like how you're eating, how you're working out, how you're sleeping, all of these things that wearables can track for you, or your weight on, things like that. So that's what we want to start our journey on, is like, let's get a baseline, let's get a benchmark. Where are we? What has the effect been of our lifestyle on these important metrics of our health? Next, when you come in after you get your testing done, which in total can be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour to get all of this information. When you leave, you're going to have your longevity score. You're going to have all of that data from the testing to use now. Some professionals, a lot of our Dexafit partners, and I know James can, they work with professionals that can take your Dexafit data and help build you out a program that's personalized to you, not a cookie cutter approach, but one that's based off maybe your lean mass, your metabolic rate, things like that, as well as your VO2 max. Yes, Dr. Ryan, GPS for your health and lifestyle. I like that. So next, we're going to compare it. You can compare it within the app. Let's see all my habits. How are they affecting my body? From there, we'll be rolling out some more tools for professionals to help with their clients that they send to get Dexafit testing, among many other features coming down the line. And then, and then finally, you just keep repeating that process. More often than not, we see on average people coming back 3, 4, 5 months. That's kind of the sweet spot where you don't want to come in for Dexafit testing and then wait a year. Another couple jumps out to mind that came in 1 year. They were very excited. It was an older couple. They had a plan they wanted to follow, Body by Science. I remember it vividly. They were going to follow a new diet. I didn't see them for a long time. And then 1 year later, they showed up for the 1-year anniversary. They were so happy to be coming back just to see how their progress had been, because they'd been following their plan to a T. And unfortunately for me, I had to break the news to them that when I gave them the results, their body fat had gone up, they'd increased fat mass and lost lean mass. So clearly that's not to say that the program they were doing does not work. It obviously has worked for some people. It just didn't work for them. And I remember when they left, they go, all right, we're going to see you a lot sooner this time. Because again, they want to make sure you come back. You want to make sure you give yourself enough time to let whatever it is you're doing work. But at the same time, you don't want to wait too long in case it's not working. You're able to pivot to something that does. So that's in a nutshell, how, from the very beginning, how we envisioned the Dexafit journey for people and providing them the tools that they need to achieve the change that they're hoping. And we're continuing to roll out more tools, and really appreciate everybody for being a part of the Dexafit journey. James?
All right. Thank you, Adam, for sharing so much with us. How many of you think that Adam has shared really valuable knowledge over here? Say thank you to Adam. And right now, we're going to open up to Q&A for Adam. Does anybody have any questions to ask Adam? You can ask him things about his journey. He might have a personal story that he might be willing to share. You can ask him about how the journey has been. Yeah, things like that. All right, Adam, you're getting a lot of attention. Do you feel like a celebrity?
Yeah.
Gotta say that your slides look really awesome, and Canva's doing a lot of miracles for us these days. Okay, looks like we're not getting any questions at this point. Thank you, Adam, so much. Thank you so much for your.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insights. It's been amazing.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. So next up, I will be sharing about the Dexafit journey itself. Oh, Adam, you have a question. From your experience, what are the many behavior that is beneficial from Ravinder Singh? Adam, you're muted. Let's see if I can help you with that. There we go.
All right. Well, thank you. That is a great question. So I'll go ahead and break that down into two parts. One from my own personal experience, specifically coming from an uphill battle with an autoimmune disease, specifically it's Hashimoto's. So again, I'm basing my answer on my own personal experience. If there's one thing I can tell you from Dexafit and the thousands of tests that I've seen and clients come through here, a lot of different things will work for people. People doing almost opposite things will see success from each other. So I don't want to, everything that I say is not necessarily a bias towards this is the best way for everybody. This was the best way for me based upon my own research over the years. And, it really started from, the biggest part was when I was working in Chicago at the trading firm. I ran the trading desk. I worked a night shift. I was trading European and Asian hours. And so I was, at the time, I was in my mid-20s or so and was completely ignorant to what kind of effect circadian rhythm has on your health. And I decided, I'm going to start working the night shift. Okay, I'll go to the gym and work out late at night around, 11 o'clock. I was still lifting heavy like I was playing football. And then I'd go in and I'd put on a pot of coffee and start working, and then I'd go home and try to sleep. But then on the weekends, I'd still go out with my friends. So I'd try to sleep, late at night and go up during the day. That was really pouring gasoline on fire with my autoimmune condition that I had. So one of the biggest things that helped me was really focusing in on my circadian rhythm and letting my body know when it was daylight out and when it was nighttime. So there's a couple ways that I did that. One was I tried making sure I did not miss breakfast. Missing breakfast is a great way to really let your body know, okay, it's morning. I set the rhythm for the day. Also seeing morning sunlight, getting outside, exposing your eyes and your skin to the sun, letting your body sense that it is light, it is day. From there, when evening would roll around, it would be protecting my eyes from artificial light sources that could mimic the sun, which would be telling my body specifically that, hey, it's not night, it's day, which would be suppressing your melatonin. Blue light from lights can suppress your melatonin level for it. So somebody like me that was dealing with an autoimmune condition, it was really important that I make sure my body knew when it was night, it was night, when it was day, it was day. And so to this day, these are some lighter blue blockers, but at night I'll wear these red tinted blue blockers if I'm watching TV or on my phone. During the day, later in the evening, I'll wear these right here, which still protect a little bit, mitigate the effect of blue light, which again, blue light is only found during the day in the sun. So in the evening, I want to avoid that. So I found that as soon as I adopted, I really dialed in my circadian, letting my body know what time of day it was, my thyroid condition improved significantly. Along with then on the dietary front, somebody with my conditioning, avoiding certain foods, gluten and dairy were the two biggest culprits for me. So dietary effects are also very important, but I'd say it's when you're eating is important. And when you're eating has probably been the most helpful for me over even what I've been eating. So not skipping breakfast and trying not to eat late at night. Eating too late at night can also send a bad signal to my body, and that affected my health. So again, everybody is different. These are just some of the tricks that have helped me. In terms of Dexafit, what we have seen, we do have a lot of data about what people are doing. And some of the more popular things, intermittent fasting has had some success based upon self-reported journals with the Dexafit data. I would say a pescatarian diet has also proven to be very interesting to see with longevity scores. Those that describe themselves as pescatarian, meaning predominantly a fish-based diet, have had higher longevity scores than everybody else. So those are just two kind of little nuggets that we've picked up on over the years. But in the end, everybody is different. So I encourage them to really go and try to learn as much as they can and try different things and make sure, more importantly, you're tracking it to make sure it's actually working. Because as I said, there's a lot of things that a popular blogger, podcaster might say is the best way to do something. You go in and you do the test, and if your body's not improving off of it, you can't be stuck because that guy said or that girl said it was the best way to do it. It's not the best way for you. Probably you got to continue to experiment and find what does work.
Awesome. Sounds like in the end of the day, we do need to look into a self-exploration journey. All right, Adam, we have a few more questions coming in for you. Garrett asks, Dexa gives further insight for greater inputs. I see this being similar to other products on the market like DNA profiling. Do you see Dexafit Journey being complementary to DNA profiling as well? Or can Dexafit Scan provide sufficient information on its own for an individual to work with?
So we actually have, we've worked with some DNA profiling companies over here in the United States, and we have had a lot of clients that have used their services. So it is definitely very complementary. So I will say with the DNA profiling, that's, even though they'll make a recommendation based upon your genetics. And I've actually done it in the past, and based on my genetics, they'll say there's certain types of exercises I should do better, certain types of foods. Now, again, it's complementary in the sense of your DNA is not necessarily, it's a blueprint. It's not necessarily, you're not going to be stuck to whatever they say, but it does give you a path to start from, but you're going to want to use Dexafit testing to find out if those recommendations are actually working for you, because there is something you can express with, I'm sure some of you are familiar with the science of epigenetics and turning on, turning off specific, genetic traits. And there are things you can do with your environment to affect your health. And that's where I would say it is complementary. And we've had people that have used the product. They've used the workout system, and they've followed the diet, and then they've tracked it with Dexafit to make sure it actually is working. So I would say it is definitely complementary, but again, don't feel like it is the only way and it is the best way to do it. It is just a way to experiment with. I see another one. Can you give us any examples of professional athletes utilizing Dexafit? Yeah, one of our advisors and a good friend of mine, he's with the San Francisco 49ers. He's the head of athlete health and performance. And so basically he oversees all team doctors, strength coaches, trainers. And what they're doing is they're using Dexafit testing in their athletes throughout the season. There's any number of applications to use with an athlete where it's you're planning out maybe how much you're eating, making sure there are no asymmetries, especially if you're coming off an injury, or if you're an athlete and you want to, I see somebody asked about like a golfer. There have been a lot of use cases of golfers using DEXA. The biggest part is the asymmetry piece and ensuring proper development as well, identifying the best distribution of lean mass to fat mass. So again, I mean, you're going to find this information, everybody has a body, and everybody cares about their body composition distribution. And so I think monitoring that, you're going to be able to use that as an athlete to figure out what is best for you and to make sure you're developing, the right amount of lean mass and the right distribution.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions we have for you today. You have answered really well for all of them. Yeah, I really like the part where you were sharing about how DEXA really can complement with DNA profiling. And just for everyone to know, when you're using a DNA profiling, it's really like a trend analysis per se, but when you're using Dexafit services, very often how I like to see it is like it's a photo snap of your data. So where are you right now? Whereas with DNA profiling, it's more like these are what your genes are saying that your trend analysis might look like. So perhaps that might be something worth looking into or worth thinking as part of your self-exploration journey in terms of your fitness and health with Dexafit. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Adam, so much for the insightful
Thank you.
session.